All right. Hi, everyone. It's been a while, but I'm so glad to be back. My name is Aiden, and I am the founder of Know Your Candidate BA. Today, we are starting our Broken Arrow School Board candidate interviews, and our first guest is George Ghesquire, and he's running for Zone 2 in Broken Arrow Public Schools. George has been an active member and volunteer at Guts Church for almost 23 years. He's also been able to meet a lot of people during his time there. George is a troop master for his Children's Scouts group. He currently has 3 children in Broken Arrow Public Schools, and his main platform point is parental voice in schools. Hi, George.
Hey,
How are you doing tonight?
doing great. How about you, Aiden?
I'm well. I'm so glad you could join me tonight.
Yes,
So,
as am I.
yeah, a lot of scheduling. So, all right. So I'm going to start with our questions, and these are just going to be questions that I found online that were based on school boards. So the first question is, why just are you running for school board in general? And then also, what are your priorities?
Okay, well, that's fair. The why is probably a little different than average. Um, about 3 years ago, I just kind of felt led in the direction towards politics in general. Not that, but I
Mhm.
didn't have any specificity to it. It's just like, God, what do you want me to do? And there was no real direction on it yet. But then when this kind of season came up, I downloaded the documents and it was just like looked what's available, and it was like, well, school board. And I was like, well, that's perfect because I got 3 kids in school and that is a very important thing to me. And so I just kind of felt directed to go that direction. So filled out my candidacy papers and put them in, and now I have more people wanting to meet me than I've ever had in my life.
That's awesome. I love when people who have never thought about getting into politics or anything decide to. It really adds like new ideas into the bunch. So our next question is there a particular issue that kind of sparked this? I know you talked about your faith, but just a particular issue like in schools that you see.
No, not really. I mean, Broken Arrow's been pretty solid overall. I've
Mhm.
got no complaints. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we maintain that and we don't start to decline, as
Definitely.
we've seen in some school districts around the country, where all of
Mhm.
a sudden students are being put in unsafe positions and parents don't have the voice to be able to fix that. And
Mhm.
so I just don't want to see any kind of decline here in our district.
Definitely, definitely. And then what experiences or skills have prepared you to serve? Because I know you've volunteered at Guts, but I didn't know like what kind of aspect you'd had around that.
Sure, sure. So I spent about 9 years volunteering and sometimes leading teams and teaching in various children's departments.
Hmm.
So from elementary age or junior high age and different things. And when I was working junior high, I was also working kind of a security aspect to it, making sure the kids are, junior high. So you got to make sure that they're
Hmm.
being safe with each other, and then also in a security capacity at the church and throughout the nightmare, which of course is our big um,
Mm.
October
Yeah,
um, event. So
yeah, that's awesome. I did some of that too at my church, so I know how the kids can be.
yes,
Yeah. And then what would you say would like differentiate you from the other school board member candidates?
I honestly have no idea. I have not even looked at their platform or anything.
That's totally
I,
okay. That's totally
yeah,
okay. Yeah. It's kind of all coming so fast. I was trying to plan these interviews. I was like, oh my gosh, the election's in like 2 weeks.
yes,
I was like, it's crazy.
yeah. It's been a little fast for
Yeah.
me too. Like I just was able to get yard signs like 3 days ago,
Mm,
and it wasn't something I was really thinking about.
yeah.
I work a full-time job. I wasn't planning on investing a whole bunch of money into this campaign and all that
Right.
stuff. Why, I mean, why would you invest your life savings into a campaign for a volunteer position?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, but it is important too. So I'm trying to
Mhm.
at least make sure that the effort is there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what is your like vision for education in our community?
Well, I would like to I would like to make sure that our students know how to think critically.
Hmm.
Critical thought is so important across all of our spheres of life. And if they can't, you know, if they don't know how to put this together with this to make this, then to me they've lost in the grand scheme. And it doesn't matter if they can memorize, historical items, or if they know, 2 plus 2. If they can't think critically, then they'll be easily misled in the future.
Mhm.
And honestly, I'd like to see a little bit of vocational items come back. You know,
Mhm.
like welding, like life skills that people actually use, home ec type things. Where,
Mhm.
because I don't know about you, but I've never, since I left high school, factored a trinomial, never one time.
Yeah.
But I have cooked a lot,
Mhm.
and those skills would be really nice to
Right.
have been able to have invested in.
Yeah, I know that's kind of what a lot of my generation is feeling. Just like like a lot of more like financial literacy classes, we feel would be a big thing.
Yeah,
How to do your taxes, how to invest, how to buy a house, get a mortgage, that kind of stuff. So that's awesome.
your basic life skills. It'd be
Yeah,
awesome to be able to have some information on that before you try to do it on your own.
right. And I've definitely found out the critical thinking being in college now, how important it is to have, because that's basically what you're doing all the time.
At least it should be,
So
right?
yeah. And then, so, Oklahoma ranks in the bottom for education and funding. What changes do you think should be made on the state and local levels regarding public education?
So I know that we rank on the bottom for funding,
Mhm.
but at the same time, I don't feel like it's an unreasonable amount to work with.
Mhm.
When you look at, I think the per student spending is like $9,500 a year. So that means that a class with 20 students has $180,000 to work with.
Mm.
Well, that to me, that makes me think, if you're telling me you can't pay a teacher more than 35 or 40 out of that, then that means that there's some wasteful things going on.
Mm.
And so the important part is to let's make sure that we're not being wasteful with it. Let's
Yeah.
make sure that we're not top heavy,
Mhm.
like um those things. That's the biggest thing on that, as far as spending. But I don't think that spending is a direct correlation to educational wellness either. I think that most private schools work with a much lower rate, and
Mhm.
yet they have a higher education standard. and
Mm.
and so that to me just says that maybe we're just not managing it properly. Maybe we're not
Mm.
managing our students properly. Maybe we're not managing our money properly. So
Yeah,
anything we can do to hone those items, and bring them into more focus would probably be a good idea.
definitely, definitely. And then these next questions are going to be from people in the community. So they're pretty much from zone two, and there's a few people that were from union because I'm also going to interview the union candidates, but their
Sure,
questions I thought were still really good.
absolutely.
So it's just going to be, these are community questions. So the first one is, what are your plans for handling bullying situations? Because in Broken Arrow right now, we have a no tolerance policy, but it's not usually followed through on, this person says on their experiences in the 20 plus years they've had children in Broken Arrow.
Okay, so bullying is a tough one for me to address because I really haven't experienced any of that yet. My
Mm-hmm.
kids are in seventh grade, sixth grade, and pre-K, and there hasn't really been they haven't had any issues to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
um, I can speak a little more to class disruptions, kids that are throwing
Yeah,
fits, throwing chairs, things of that nature.
right, right.
And I've secondhand, because my wife has been a substitute teacher, in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's seeing where there's times when teachers are not supported. They're, instead of saying, hey, this child is throwing a fit, we need to take him to the principal's office and get his parents involved right now. I mean, when I say a fit, I don't mean laying on the ground, kicking and screaming.
Mm-hmm.
That's a standard fit. I mean, like throwing hurtful things at people, trying to hurt
Right.
them, you know. And so, and when they would take the child to the principal's office, the principal would send them back to class and tell them, no, you can't do that. You just have to take every other child out of the classroom until he's done throwing his tantrum.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's backwards. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You don't disrupt your whole class because of one child. You take out the disruption and work with the parents to make sure that that is addressed. And
Right.
so, um, But as far as no tolerance bullying, I mean, I'm totally on board with that. I do not think that bullies have a place.
Yeah, definitely. And then one of the best ways to support our children is voting in bond elections. Are you a regular voter in bond elections?
Um, Most bond elections kind of hit some of the major elections. They don't seem to go like randomly. I
Hmm.
don't I don't know if I am or am not, honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
Just if they're on the ballot, I'm gonna research it and vote the way I feel is right. But I
Hmm.
can't say whether I've voted one way or the other on them.
Yeah. And I know they're every few years. So it's like just, yeah, a lot of time in between. So yeah, no worries. And then this person says, since attending meetings and voting is your number one job as a school board member, have you been able to attend any meetings? I know you've said that you have a full-time job, but have you been able to attend any meetings outside of that?
I actually went to a meeting Monday.
Awesome.
I figured it'd be good to at least see what that's like in person. I've watched
Hmm.
many online, but I attended one Monday in person just to kind of
Yeah.
get a little better feel for it. It kind of seems like all the real work is being done behind the scenes, and
Mm.
that the school board meeting is kind of just the the horse and pony show, where
Mm.
they put it up in front of everybody and then they do it.
Hmm.
But that's okay. But it was definitely a first time for me. So
Yeah. Yeah. And then do you, or I guess, will you represent the whole community even if their views are divergent from your own?
well, I will do my best to use critical thinking and weigh all the options. I mean,
Mhm.
if there's opposing viewpoints, I want to hear um, both sides. I want to hear what they're what's driving them, what is the main reason that they're pushing from their side, and the most cases there can be a compromise made that will help both sides. It's very rarely that it's an either or situation. I much prefer a both and, if
Yeah.
at all possible.
Yeah. And then I know we kind of talked about earlier in the when we were talking about state funding, that kind of stuff, but what is your overall just big vision for Broken Arrow Public Schools?
Um, well, I'd like to follow the governor's lead on that, and say top five.
Mhm.
I mean, he's trying to go top 10 state. Well, that's a little difficult, but Broken Arrow is already like one of the top five largest school districts in our state, and
Mhm.
I don't see a reason why we couldn't be the top five in education and student. I don't know. Happiness is not the right word, but
Like
where they love,
engagement.
yeah, where they love being a part of it.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely. Yeah. I know going to those football games, the students love that. I wish, I hope they love going to school as much as they love going to football games.
right?
Yeah. And then for the last question I have, so, school closures are a big thing right now and they're affecting all kids, but disproportionately special education students. What are your recommendation in order to keep kids, especially special education students, engaged and successful in these times? That was a big question. So,
Yeah, that's a lot. Um, Special ed classrooms are already hard, and I mean
mhm,
that in a sense of um, teachers have a special calling to do that,
mhm,
and so when they're having to disengage and disconnect from their students for an extended period of time, it makes it hard on both the teacher and the student to re-engage, because most special ed students, of course, that routine is important.
definitely.
And so, but as far as like, hey, what do you do to fix it? I don't know that I have an answer for that except for
Mhm,
listen, because
yeah.
I'm not in the classroom, but I can listen to people that are. I
Mhm.
can listen to parents and again make a decision based on the best argument for what is going on.
Those are definitely important qualities for everyone. So, well, that was our last question. So I just want to say a special thank you to you for joining me tonight after all of our
Absolutely.
scheduling
Thank
stuff.
you.
It's it's been kind of interesting trying to schedule stuff now.
I'm
And
sure.
then, yeah, and then our school board, I just want to remind everyone that our school board elections are on February 8th. And I hope you will all join me at join me for our next interview. I hope y'all have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Aiden.